Are you ready to unlock your full potential? Motivational speaker, coach, God lover, and goal crusher Joe Rivera brings you inspiring leaders, incredible stories, and valuable lessons on how you can change, grow, and reforge your life. Now, here's your host, Joe Rivera.
What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Reforge Your Life Show. I'm your host, Joe Rivera, and here at the Reforge Your Life Show, we like to show that the comeback is more than possible. And today, I'm honored and grateful to have this woman on my show today. She's a rock star. You guys are going to absolutely love her. She's a speaker, an author, a podcaster, and she's just an amazing soul, man. Caitlin Donovan, thank you for coming through the show, man. I mean, Kate, it's been awesome knowing you, and I knew from the start, like, that your energy was always contagious, and I love that. And I'm just thankful that you're here today.
I'm so grateful to be here, and I'll tell you, my energy wasn't always that way.
Speaking of, wasn't always that way. I've heard your story, but I don't think, I know the audience, not everybody in the audience has, and I can't tell it the way you can. I mean, nobody can. So I'd love for you to share that and tell us why it wasn't always the way it always was and all that other good stuff.
I'm generally a pretty energetic person, and so that is sort of my standard. However, I did all the right things for a very long time. I was the good kid who made the right decisions, who got the good grades and got into the good school and got a full scholarship because my parents were broke, so there was no other way for me to get through any sort of university program. And when I was in school, I flipped a switch and went from Western medicine to Chinese medicine, followed my heart, loved it, amazing. Took a trip while I was doing my master's degree, met a man from Poland, moved to Poland, got married, started a business in a foreign country. All these like kind of really big things that match my personality. I'm a bold person. I'm a courageous person. I fear, but I move forward anyway. And on paper, at around the age of 28, on paper, I had literally more than I ever thought that I would have, not just financially, just sort of overall. I just didn't know that I could have all that goodness in my life. I had real estate. I had a wonderful husband. I had a prospering practice. I was speaking multiple languages, living in Europe, like really just crushing it. And I was miserable. This is when my energy started dropping. I started gaining weight. I was in a bad mood all the time. I wasn't caring at the time. My job was acupuncture. So I've been an acupuncturist for 17 years, and I was seeing patients, which I'm supposed to love doing, right? I followed my passion to do this. So I was really confused. Like, why don't I love this? Like, why do I feel like this? In the midst of this, I told my husband, like, I got to get out of this country. This is not the place for me. He got a job offer in the Czech Republic, which is just one country over. So I was thinking, great, like Eastern Europe to Eastern Europe, just what I need, And I loved Prague. It was an amazing place to live for 6 years. But I still couldn't get out of that sense that something wasn't in the right place in my life. My health wasn't working. My energy wasn't working. On paper, everything is great, but I just don't feel good. And then one day I read a Harvard Business Review article. And it was about burnout. And I went tick, 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 down the list of all the things about burnout. I just kept going, tick. And then I thought, I'm a stress expert and a healthcare practitioner who works with the nervous system. How the heck did this happen to me? And here we are.
What did the burnout look like?
For me, it was extreme fatigue. I've been an athlete my whole life. I was a competitive gymnast growing up. I was the captain of the field hockey team in high school. I ran track. I did all the things. When I was burnt out, there was a walk from the tram to my apartment in Prague that was 4 minutes long. It was up a hill and 4 minutes. So short walk, steep hill. I was so exhausted getting off the tram after work that I would stop and sit on somebody's stoop halfway up. This is a girl who's been an athlete her whole life. I was so tired, I couldn't get myself home. I remember one day sitting on the stoop and knowing that I had to go get my dog to take her for a walk. And I was like tears pouring down my face, thinking, like, I can't even finish getting up this stoop. How am I going to get all the way into my apartment, get my dog ready, get her back downstairs, and then take her for a walk? I couldn't like fathom how that was going to happen. So I was exhausted. My husband told me a couple years after all of this happened that we were almost divorced during that time. I had no idea, but I was terrible. I was always in a bad mood. I was irritable. I was like nasty. So during that time, that energy that the energy that you met
Wasn't there?
wasn't there.
I'm curious though, and I'm sure there's listeners out there who are curious. Here's a woman who, you had everything, right? Married, finances were good, living in another country. There wasn't. I mean, from what I'm hearing is, there wasn't much struggle at that moment, right? From the outside looking in.
Right.
Where did the burnout come from? What did it look like on the inside? Because the outside looking in looks great. It looks like Caitlin's has the life. She's just chilling, you know?
Yeah. The inside of it was a lot messier. So I grew up in a city in Massachusetts, under 100,000 people, lots of drugs, lots of gangs, lots of crime.
Mm.
One day I was talking to my sister about it and I said, it wasn't that bad. Like, we're successful. A lot of our friends are pretty successful. Kind of, what are you talking about? She said, Katie, how many people do you know have been or are heroin addicts? And I started counting. And she said, you're not supposed to be able to count. And I was like, oh, I hear what you're saying. So I knew people that had been murdered when I was growing up. I knew people that had done the murdering when I was growing up. Like, I grew up in a place that was just a little messy. And in that space, there's a lot of prove yourself energy.
Mm.
Not only do you have to get out, but you have to get out and be uber successful. And when you do that, you're proving that you can get out of like this place that you came from. So on one hand, I had this energy that I had to prove myself. On another level, I loved acupuncture. I still love acupuncture and Chinese medicine. But my initial goal was to become a doctor. And I had a full scholarship as a pre-med student to Boston University. So I was on track to becoming a doctor. And a doctor is a doctorate, right? Like, you've got a full, massive, big degree that takes a long time. Acupuncture is a master's degree, so still fairly serious, but people don't know it's a master's degree. And every single person you meet, when you say, oh yeah, I'm an acupuncturist, the first question is, does that work? So there was the prove yourself energy that I got from my hometown also proved to be like this fight that I had to have for my profession. I had to prove that I was worthy of seeing patients. I had to meet people. So I would meet people in a bar and they would be like, acupuncture, that doesn't do anything. And I'd be like, well, do you think I'm like an idiot? So I felt like I was constantly fighting because I was afraid that my stuff wasn't valuable enough and worthy enough. Then when I was with my patients, I was doing life coaching with them. I was doing almost therapy with them. I was doing their acupuncture. I was helping them with, a lot of my patients were also foreigners. So I was helping them like find their banks and their doctors and I was like a personal assistant. I was doing 18 jobs and getting paid for one. All because of fear of not being good enough. So underneath all of it, there was this constant push for more from myself because of an underlying nonstop fear that I wasn't worthy of any of it.
Yeah, that's understandable of how that could be exhausting. And, always having to prove yourself and worrying about what other people are thinking and, not feeling that you're never good enough. That's a belief system that will create anxiety, burnout, worry, self-doubt, all of that,
Yeah.
right? So here you are from the outside looking in, everything looks great. You got all this going on the inside, all these inner critics, the gremlins, all of it. It's all there. And you're also working in a job where, I mean, I correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm getting from what you're saying is that there wasn't any fulfillment.
There were moments. It's really special to be the one practitioner that gives somebody relief when they've already had six doctors tell them that they couldn't help them with their migraines or with their endometriosis or with their whatever it is that they're going through. So there was some fulfillment in it, but it wasn't equivalent to what I was putting in.
Mm. Yeah, and that in itself could be exhausting when you're putting in all the work, you're burning the candle on both ends, but the reward isn't great enough for what
Yeah.
you're putting in.
And when you get that reward, when people come back and they say, "Oh my God, this is so amazing. I haven't had a migraine in a month. It's been 5 years that I've been having them constantly, and now I have 4 weeks not having one. I'm not afraid to plan a vacation." This is an actual patient that happened. Like, I haven't planned a vacation in 5 years because I'm so afraid I'm going to go away and have a migraine and not be able to enjoy it. I
Mm.
feel like for the first time, I can probably plan a vacation for myself. This was a magical moment for me, but it lasted 5 seconds.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I didn't give myself the opportunity to really absorb what she was saying to me, because people that are not worthy don't get to celebrate their successes.
Mm. That's
So I
right.
had those moments, right? Like, I had little tiny like ding, like, oh my God, that's a good thing. And then I was like, well, it's not just me, it's acupuncture, the patient heals themselves, but I didn't give myself a moment to absorb the impact of what I was providing people.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that could be challenging in itself, not being able to celebrate your wins. Because us being in that personal development world, we know how important that is, right? You got to celebrate the wins. You got to take those in and congratulate yourself. And not doing that, man, it's not a way to live life. So where did that shift happen from? Man, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yeah, so when I read that list and I was checking off the burnout things, I hadn't heard of the word burnout before that point. And when I started doing research into it, what I found was that most of the things that were sort of in the academic world on burnout were all about corporate offices, doctors, and nurses. I was an entrepreneur. I worked for myself. I didn't have a boss to blame. So the research that I read wasn't super applicable to me, and I thought, like, this is a huge gap. There's a lot of people that don't work in corporate offices that end up burnt out.
Mm.
So how are we going to talk? Like, what about the female entrepreneurs? What about any entrepreneur? What about mothers? What about single fathers? What about, like, there's so many options here. Why are we only talking about these three groups of people? And so I started to look and think, well, how does this apply to me in my life? How can I extrapolate these ideas and really look at my own stuff? And I'm a little bit different here than most people that do burnout work. Is the thing that they'll say is, I figured it all out all by myself, and now I help you so you can do it faster. Let me tell you, I stood on the shoulders of giants. I read every piece of research. That means I did not do it by myself. I did it based on other people's thoughts and ideas. I got a therapist because I was like, something is not okay here. Like, I'm not okay. In my self-talk is not okay. My actions are not okay. After therapy, when I started to have a little bit of energy again, I went and got a coach because I was like, now I need to focus on forward movement. When I had energy and I was forward moving, then I got a nutritionist to help me, because I was like, the way stress uses what you put in your body means that you are almost always deficient. If you're a woman, you're probably iron deficient when you're stressed. No matter who you are, you're magnesium deficient when you're stressed. There's all sorts of things happening that I was like, this needs to be refueled on a physical level too. So I had all sorts of research to lean on that I didn't have to do, that other people did for me. Then I had a therapist and a coach and a nutritionist. This process took me 18 months. Took me a long time to crawl through it, but every single step of the way, I was learning more and more about myself. The biggest lesson and the most important thing that people never want to do when I tell them to do it is I found out that I was really, really resentful of doing so much and not feeling like I was getting enough in return, of taking care of everybody all the time around me and feeling like people weren't doing the same for me, of overgiving and overgiving and overgiving and overgiving and still being underfueled for my life. Resentment, 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 resentment. When I started really looking at it, I found every single place in my life where my boundaries were being crossed, and every single place in my life where I did not want to admit it, but I was abandoning myself, I was neglecting myself for the perceived benefit of other people. Resentment taught me, hey, you need this. Hey, you need this over here too. Hey, this bit over here, you don't need to be involved in that. Those people did not ask for your help. Slow down, sister. It taught me every single place where I needed to pull my energy back into myself from the outer world. Resentment is the thing ultimately that saved me.
Man, that's so powerful. There's a lot to unpack on what she was just saying. Everybody listening, I hope you're paying attention to this because, you know, in order for her to remove that burnout and to overcome that, number one, she realized that she didn't have to do it on her own. She realized that in order to get to where she wants to get, she had to be on the shoulders of giants. She had to get help and not be afraid to ask for help. Right? There's a lot of entrepreneurs out there who they allow that ego to get in the way, which is another thing she did. She removed that ego to be able to say, hey, you know what? I got an issue with this. I'm not going to do it alone. I need help to be able to do that. And I think, you know, that takes a lot of strength in someone's character to do. You know, the biggest leaders in the world and most successful people in the world realize that, you know what, shit, I don't got to do this on my own. I can have a supporting cast that's going to help me elevate and get me to my greatness. But Kate, the thing that I really think that was really powerful is learning to remove the resentments that we have in life. Because man, that resentment, wow, what a weight on your shoulders it puts, and that draining catabolic energy that it creates when you have that resentment and you're holding on to it. Because, you know, once you release that resentment, you know, it takes that weight off.
Here's the thing, though. I don't want people to find the resentment and then just let it go. Like, that's not going to actually help you. You have to look at the resentment, be really honest about what's going on there, like really honest about what's going on there, and then make the changes that are necessary in order to avoid having it happen in the future. Right? So I had to look at things like I was the girl because I was living in a foreign country and I spoke the local language and obviously English. I would see people on the street corner like confused about where they should go, obviously tourists, and I would walk up to them and offer help, which is a nice thing to do when you have spare energy. But what I realized was I didn't have spare energy, and I was only noticing that they needed help because I wasn't paying attention to myself. My energy was always outside of me, scanning my surroundings for like, who can I assist next?
Yeah.
Who can I help now? Like, girl, rein it in. The world is not asking you to abandon yourself completely. When people need things, they will speak up. And if they don't, it's not your job to fix it. But that was a lot of like, this was a huge ego thing, really. Because in order to let go of the resentment, I had to admit that I was engaging in help with people to feel morally superior.
Wow.
I wasn't doing it to stay in my integrity. I was doing it to be a good person, to be labeled a good person, so people would know that I was a good person. So people would think I was a good person. Right? But I had to admit that to myself. That's hard.
Yeah, it's not easy because you're 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 admitting a fault that you have, right? And also you're letting go of giving a fuck what other people think. That's
Yeah.
never easy, right?
No.
People struggle with that all the time.
Hmm.
And realizing that and saying, you know what, I can't worry about what other people are thinking. And in order to be able to help people to my fullest potential, I gotta help myself first, you know?
Amen.
Um, and that's so powerful. And I hope everybody's catching what she's dropping there because that's real. That's as real as it gets. So you had these limited beliefs that you cracked through, the I'm not good enough and, all the self doubt, the worry that creeped up. You were able to crack through those limited beliefs and those character defects. And you did it by asking for help. You did it by self care. You did it by, finally putting yourself first.
Hmm.
So I'm curious because I'm a big believer that when we overcome well never we never overcome those limited beliefs, right? They're always there, but we know how to realize that they're not in control of us. We control them.
Yeah.
So once you realize that, I believe that there's core values that are uncovered.
Hmm.
So what are some of those core values that you were able to uncover that you kind of latch onto now when those limited beliefs arise, when the inner critic comes up in your head? What are the core values that you kind of lean into for that?
This is one of my favorite things to talk about. One of my big core values that I use resentment for still. One of my big core values is generosity, but not at self-expense.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So to me, this works. This is if you're an entrepreneur, you're listening, like listen up real quick because your pricing structure is about to change. Okay? I base my pricing based on how much I need to get paid in order to feel fully generous in a situation.
I
I
love
don't
that.
want to hold anything back. When you hire me, I'm giving you everything I got. And I know that about myself because of how I worked as an acupuncturist for so long. I'm never just going to do the acupuncture. The solution for me wasn't to stop offering people the other supports that I was offering. The solution for me was to charge an amount that paid for all of the things that I offer. So I say no to things if the answer to the question is accepting this amount of money going to interfere with my natural sense of generosity.
I love that. I love that, man. And it's the generosity thing, and also you just mentioned something that I think is important for the audience to catch on to. Also, the power of saying no to something that doesn't serve you.
Yes. And I think that there's a lot of talk now about servant leadership and giving of yourself and sort of this self-sacrifice and volunteerism is shown in research to make you feel good about yourself. Sure, when you are full and pouring from your overflow. But I promise you it doesn't feel like that when you're empty and trying to pour from nothing. So how are the different ways that I can be fueled in various situations so that I am full and overflowing and can pour into people the way that I enjoy to because I've been filled up to?
How does someone do that when they don't know how to?
Resentment. Look for resentment. This is when I realized I did a resentment journal years and years ago, and it's still like kind of the number one thing that sells on my website. It's this like small product that people just keep coming after. And the idea of the resentment journal is to make you aware as to all the different places it pops up in your life. So I start looking at it. When I get a proposal, if I'm feeling like a little sassy about it, it's not the right thing. If I'm starting to be like, really, Sheila, you want me to go there for that much money? Okay, no. Like, I know that that attitude is because I would feel resentful if I actually took that money. If I'm going to feel resentful, then that's how I judge whether or not to say yes or no. Here's the thing. Sometimes you're going to do stuff that you feel resentful over because it matches some of your other core values. Right? So you're going to choose resentment on purpose because there's other things that you want to accomplish. What I've learned is if I feel like I have to say yes to something, work, family, or otherwise, and it's not jiving with me, I have to find a way to pay myself back for that decision. So make the sacrifice and then fill the bank account. A bank account could be energetic too, not just money, but like in any way, shape, or form. So I used to just do the sacrifice. Now I'm like, okay, I made a sacrificial decision and it was the right decision for my family or for whatever. But now, what do I need to do to fill that hole that I just gave away?
That's powerful, man. Something that might create a hole in one area, you're filling the hole somewhere else, so it kind of comes together. Man,
Yeah, because sometimes stuff's going to come up, you know?
yeah, of course. This thing called life throws curveballs. We got to be able to knock them out the park and bob and weave, and got to learn how to pivot, and come up with something that's going to serve you to be able to avoid those challenges in life, or overcome those challenges, I should say,
Yeah.
that are going to come up in your life. So I'm curious, what wakes your spirit up? What's something that keeps you going?
First thing that comes to mind when you say that is nature. I don't care if it's mountains or forest or beach or nature is the thing that refuels me best. So sometimes if I have to say, like, I have to stop and write an extra 3 emails that I wasn't expecting to write today, that's a mini sacrifice. I'm a little resentful for it. If I go for a walk in the woods after, I'm fine. I'm fine. I need that. I have to have that. So that's a huge one for me. Most of the ways that I pay myself back aren't don't involve money. Right? Like it's not so I have a client who her favorite way to pay herself back is to go get a blowout, which cool. I don't care about that enough for that to be important enough to me to go do.
Right.
But I will do things like ask my husband to make dinner for a couple nights in a row so that I don't have to think about it.
Mm,
That's a big one.
yeah.
Nature is a big one, right? Those are things that don't cost me anything financially, but fuel me.
Yeah. There's definitely some women out there who took notice of that, and they're going to ask their husband to cook dinner for 3 nights in a row right now.
Hey, listen, sometimes my husband will flat out say, like, he'll be like, listen, I do not feel like cooking, but we can order anything you want.
Right.
So, there's always balance in all things. Like he doesn't always want to cook a couple days in a row. I don't want to cook a couple days in a row.
Yeah.
So you've got to figure out where to meet in the middle,
Absolutely, absolutely, and I want to go back to the whole resentment thing, because you brought it up quite a few times. It's definitely a tool that you use to overcome, your overwhelm. When I think of like resentments and how powerful it is to lift those resentments, I also think about how powerful forgiveness is, because sometimes we have those resentments and it's towards someone, that maybe they did something to you, or maybe you're holding on to that resentment for whatever it is. And the power of forgiveness, and how important it is, not just to forgive the person that you're holding on to that resentment from, but also for yourself. That's where it's most important, because forgiveness isn't for that person, it's for you. And when you're lifting those resentments, you're forgiving, and sometimes you're forgiving yourself. How important was that for you through your journey?
I think that's the most important bit, honestly, because I don't know if you read, we have a mutual friend, Marcela Gomez, and she wrote a blog post recently about her first husband and how she told people for years and years this story about how he decided to like end their marriage, and he did it over a phone call, and she was furious about it. And she said it took her years and years and years to look into her story and understand that when she got pregnant, she told him, "You either marry me or I'm moving back to the States and you're never going to see your child again."
Wow.
Right? So she's like, I didn't think about that part. So she could be resentful toward her husband, her ex-husband, for years and years and years and years and years without accepting her piece of the story. Most of the time in resentment, it's an internal boundary that you crossed.
Mm.
It's a 85-15. 15% of the time, somebody on the outside is doing you wrong, and that's just the situation you're in. 85% of the time, this is your own stuff. All of the ways when we self-abandon and self-neglect, we are mad at other people for. It has nothing to do with them.
Mm.
So understanding that's why I said when it comes to resentment, you have to be super honest, because you have to get underneath the resentment and say, what am I really like? Am I envious? Am I that somebody else is allowing themselves something that I don't allow myself? This is a super popular reason for resentment. Like, my coworker takes a 10-minute walk after lunch every day. I don't have time for a 10-minute walk. Okay, Sheila, like, sure you do, but you think you're too important for a 10-minute walk, so you refuse to take one, but you're mad that Jenna is okay with it. Like, you're not mad at Jenna, you're mad at yourself.
Yep.
So I think the questions start to be like, when you look at that situation and you're blaming somebody else, are you aware of what your part is? And are you aware of what your need is in that situation? What can that person teach you about what it is that you need? You're not mad at Jenna for taking a walk. You're mad at yourself for not taking one. So get outside.
Love that. Love that, man. I mean, that takes, forgiveness, removing the resentment, and that self-awareness to be able to say, you know what, let me look in the mirror and see, how much that person in the mirror is at fault.
Yeah.
Um, man. So Caitlin, I'd love for you to tell everybody, what you're doing now after you've realized that this chapter had to close for after the overwhelm and after the profession that you did. For how long did you do the acupuncture?
I've been an acupuncturist for 17 years. I was in practice for about 15.
Okay. So after 17 years of being in an industry and dealing with the overwhelm, you're now doing something powerful. And I'd love for you to share that with the audience and tell them, where they can find you also.
Yeah, so we moved back to the States, and I actually did open another acupuncture office in New York City when we first moved home, and it was 2019. And I had not built up a big enough patient base to last through the pandemic. So I was still trying to hold on to the acupuncture and using my degree in that way and all of that. And I ended up shutting down my offices in 2021 because there was no way to do it anymore. I couldn't pay rent in an office in New York City and not have patients because we weren't allowed to be open for months at a time. So I did try to hold on to it for a little while longer. And during that time, I started Fried the Burnout podcast. I wrote and released my book in 2020 and started speaking. I have always spoken in front of groups of people. Even as an acupuncturist, I was teaching other acupuncturists for 2 8-hour days in a row over the weekend. So I was teaching for 16 hours at a time on weekends fairly frequently throughout the year. I was teaching stress management courses to C-suite executives in Poland. So I had done this work in the past, but most of the time this work I felt like was something that could only happen once in a while because when you're doing it well and you're in a flow, it's fairly well paid. And I was like, well, no one is lucky enough to do that regularly and make that much money regularly doing this thing. When I dropped acupuncture, I thought maybe there are people out there doing this regularly and making this good money on a regular basis. And that's when I joined the National Speakers Association, and I met people who were doing it regularly and making that kind of money on a regular basis. So now I spend my time traveling around the country, doing keynote speeches, consultations, trainings for companies that are usually mission driven and know that their people are suffering from burnout and they want to do something about it. And they're I was really aiming my first years for, like, I wanted all the Googles and the Pepsis and the, I wanted all the big names. What I've realized is the companies that really care most about really like the well-being of their employees tend to be a little smaller.
Yeah.
And their budgets don't actually differ from those big companies, which is great. So I've found a really good niche working with mission-driven organizations who don't want their people to be burnt out and want help being able to shift their culture so that they're not encouraging burnout from their people.
Man, that's a beautiful thing. And I mean, you hear it all the time about, your purpose is inside your biggest struggle. Your purpose comes from being able to help people who have gone through the things you've had to overcome, and it's clear as day that that's what you're doing. So I want to ask this question, and I'm sure there's people in the audience who are wondering also. What's the difference with the fulfillment that you receive now compared to that 5 seconds of fame you were receiving with acupuncture?
Now I do it more intentionally. So I think the level of fulfillment is not much different, because you finish a speech and you've got people for 5 or 10 minutes coming up to you and telling you that it was great. And then it dies down. Then it's over.
Yeah.
So I have to intentionally now, on purpose, take time after an event to go through my good feedback and sit down and like really absorb it and really look at the things and say, this is what somebody got from this. This is what it meant to so-and-so. And then when I get an email from an event planner, or I get a letter from a podcast listener, or something happens, I actually literally stop everything that I'm doing to take it in. I will read it multiple times. I will breathe after I read it. I actually ask my body to absorb it on purpose. So I don't think I'm getting necessarily more or different or more fulfilling feedback. I am intentionally making my feedback more important to me.
Yes. Being conscious of it and taking those wins and celebrating them, patting yourself on the back.
Yep.
And those are so important. I hope everybody's paying attention to that, because it's vital for your well-being and for your success to keep going long term, to be aware of that. And it's a confidence booster also. It helps your self-esteem.
Well, and it changes the shape of your brain. So engaging in a practice like that has an effect on the reward center of your brain, the same center that lights up when you have sugar, when you have cocaine, when you have, like whatever it is that you're going after, right? Like if you take the time to absorb that stuff on purpose, you are teaching that part of your brain that that's the way you get reward.
Yeah. Absolutely. I've had my fair share of cocaine and sugar, and I'll take the confidence booster any day of the week. It's a lot more productive.
Right? If I can use that. Amen.
So, a couple of questions that I ask, all my guests. Number one, what does the word purpose mean to you?
Purpose to me means living in integrity with my alignment, whatever that means at any given moment in time, which also means that the result of my purpose, as it is released from my being, will change with time, because my alignment will change with time. Because a new issue will come up, a new person will come into my life, a world event will happen, like something will shift. So to me, purpose is staying in alignment with what's true to me and allowing that to come forth.
Staying in alignment with your, oh my God, that's just, it's so powerful. Because it helps you also stay true to yourself
Yeah.
and
Well, I
being,
think that's the whole, I think that
yeah,
is purpose.
yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's what it is. People are always saying, like, well, my purpose is to help people. Well, that's super generic and nobody knows what that means. I do like to help people, but I want that help to be the help that I want to give in that moment. Like, you could do lots of things to help people.
Yeah,
So why are you choosing the thing that you're choosing? Like that has to be the thing that aligns for me.
yes,
How do you serve in this world? From a fueled and fulfilled space, you have to do the thing that suits you, that you're good at, that's natural for you.
yeah. Yeah, because I mean, like you were sharing earlier, right? If you're out there and you say your purpose is I want to help people, guess what that could lead to? It could lead to burnout, right? Because you're just helping
100%.
everybody, but then you're not helping yourself. You're not being true to who you are and doing what's in
Yeah.
alignment with what you're meant to do in this world. Love
Yeah.
that, Caitlin. So the other question is, when you hear the word reforge, what comes to mind?
So in Chinese medicine, there's a metal element. So when I think reforge, I'm automatically think of metal within fire, melting down and being created into something anew. And the energy of metal in Chinese medicine is about um, beauty and symmetry and almost perfection, but like in a positive way. So when I think about being reforged, I think about all the impurities being melted away and all the good stuff staying behind and being formed into its perfect shape.
Man, that's powerful. I love that, girl. Talk about bringing the fire, girl. Oh man, Caitlin, this has been awesome. And one thing I want to ask that, is what's something the audience doesn't know about you that you enjoy doing for fun?
That's a good question. Oh, you know what I love to do, especially when I'm overwhelmed and my brain is real messy?
What's
This is so nerdy. I love a jigsaw puzzle.
okay.
I love because it gives me time for I feel like as I put the pieces into place, like my brain is getting put back into place too.
I love that. Love that. I mean, man, life's one big puzzle, right? So you're putting those pieces back together. Might as well enjoy doing the jigsaw one. Man, this has been awesome, Kay. I knew that your energy was awesome from the day we met at NSA, and I'm so glad that we were able to do this and work together. And it was even better than what I expected. I expected up here, and we went to that next level. So I love it, man. Thank you again so much for coming through.
And thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. And everybody listening, thank y'all for listening. Thank you for watching. And please don't forget to subscribe, share, and like, because remember, the sharing part, there's somebody out there that's not listening today that you could share this with, or share the episodes with, and guess what? It's going to resonate with them, and they're going to find tools that they need to be able to create their comeback. So enjoy your weekend. Stay productive, stay profitable, and stay blessed, yeah.
You've been listening to Reforge Your Life with your host, Joe Rivera. Make sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. To learn more about Joe Rivera and how he can help you or your organization reforge your life and regain your place at the top, head on over to withjoerivera.com and follow Joe on all social platforms. The Reforge Your Life podcast was produced by Thrive Loud Productions. Thanks for listening.